Hello, my name is Avery and I use they, she pronouns.
I'm Edith. I use she, her pronouns.
We are here to just talk to you about the LGBTQIA plus community and especially with a focus on pronouns, how to support your peers, and why this work is important.
This work is important because there's LGBTQIA plus rights are under attack in America right now, and a lot of misinformation is being spread, um, and that's very harmful and can lead to
It can be very harmful and it can lead to some people feeling bad about themselves even though they really shouldn't. And especially these bills have been targeted to trans people, which is especially worrying. So LGBTQIA plus stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, aromantic, asexual, and others, which is non-binary, gender fluid, genderqueer, pansexual, omnisexual, agender, and of course more, because all these things are spectrums and people can choose to identify in a lot of different ways. So, um,
intersex is a word we use to describe people who have less common combinations of hormones, chromosomes, and anatomy. Uh, It's not, this term isn't interchangeable or a synonym for transgender, although some people who are intersex do identify as transgender.
um, bisexual is an umbrella term for people who experience sexual and or emotional attraction to more than one gender, which is can be it's an umbrella term for pansexual, fluid, omnisexual, queer, etc.
Aromantic is the lack of romantic attraction to another person, so that might be you don't want to be romantically intimate with someone.
That you might like in other ways. Asexuality, called the A spectrum, can be identified in a variety of ways, including as an umbrella term, it can describe the absence of sexual attraction or not experiencing an act and a desire to act upon sexual attraction.
Queer is a general term for both gender and sexual minorities who are not cisgender or heterosexual. There's a lot of overlap between queer and trans identities, but not all queer people are trans, and not all trans people are queer.
Pansexuality is capable of being attracted to many genders. Sometimes the term omnisexual is used in the same manner. Pansexual is being used more and more frequently as more people acknowledge that gender is not binary.
Gender fluid is someone who identifies in a way where their gender identity is fluid or changing. So one day they might feel like they identify more female, and the next day they might identify more gender neutral.
Or even masculine. It can really just go all over the place. Transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned with at birth. The term transgender is not indicative of sexual orientation, hormonal makeup, physical anatomy, or how one is perceived in daily life. It's more of a feeling of how you see yourself.
One thing when we sent out our survey to get like kind of a baseline for how kids in our school
what their knowledge was.
What their knowledge was.
These sorts of things.
There were a lot of questions about gender, sex, and sexuality. Gender, sex, and sexuality are often confused. Although they are all parts of it, they each describe a different aspect of someone's identity. Gender is a human-made concept to categorize people, and it does not have to align with your physical appearance. There are many different gender identities and many different ways to express your gender. Gender is fluid, meaning that your gender identity could change over time. That doesn't mean you choose a different gender, it just means you recognize that you don't identify with a certain gender anymore. Sex is biological. It is determined mostly by your sex chromosomes and combinations of X and Y. Contrary to popular belief, there are more than two sexes. Male and female are the two that are most common. However, intersex people who are not male nor female explicitly are a little over 1% of the population. Finally, sexuality is your attraction to others based on their gender. Sexuality is not necessarily physical. It is an attraction to gender, not sex. For example, if you identify as a lesbian, you may be attracted to trans women, cis women, or other people outside the gender binary. Sexuality is a fluid trait.
Gender. How many genders are there? This is one of the questions that was asked in the
Survey.
The survey. Thank you, Edith, that we put out. There are no set number of genders. Gender is something that people use to express themselves, and all genders are valid. Can you choose your gender? Gender isn't necessarily something you choose, but labeling is something you can explore and work towards understanding. Your experiences and feelings are the thing that matter and are not inherently true about the labels of man, woman, non-binary, etc. They are just ways to describe how you feel about yourself. So why does gender change? Gender doesn't really change for the same reason, and it doesn't change, but your understanding and label of it often does. As you explore all the possibilities that come with gender, you may find new ways to identify and express yourself. Remember, your label should fit you. You shouldn't change to fit your label. What is gender identity? Gender identity can reflect how labels have changed. For example, if your gender lines up with the sex you were assigned with at birth, that is known as being cisgender. If your gender does not match the sex you were aligned with at birth, that is known as being transgender. Cis and trans are not gender, they are adjectives that you can use to describe it. A trans man is a man. What are gender roles? Gender roles are cultural and societal norms that heavily impact how we think about gender. They can restrict what people wear, how they act, what they do, and more. Gender roles can be very harmful when someone who identifies with a certain label is expected to act in a way that is not accurate to their actual gender. Exploring gender. Exploring gender is a personal process that can take some time. There are no rules, only that you feel comfortable with the labels, or lack of labels that feel right to you. You can never have fully understand your gender. You can just try to figure out how you can live your life most comfortable way for you.
Another thing that a lot of people asked about were pronouns. So, what are pronouns? They're a way we use to identify other people without using their name. For example, he, she, it, and they are all examples of pronouns. We all use them in our daily life. If we don't know someone's gender, we say, "Oh, this person lost their wallet." So it's just a way to identify people without knowing their name. It's important to use the correct pronouns because using the right ones makes people feel accepted, comfortable, and valid. People figure out what feels good to them, and some people like using multiple pronouns because they all feel right or they aren't sure what they like yet.
Neopronouns like ze, zir, etc. are just as valid. Just use the ones like you would he, him, and she, her. Should you just refer to everyone as they? Sometimes, especially when you don't know somebody's gender, it's best to use they because it's the most neutral pronoun that we have.
Yeah. So yeah, if you don't know someone's pronouns and you see them across the room and you don't know what their pronoun is, just use they, them, and then you can go over, introduce yourself, share your pronouns, and ask for theirs. And then once you know their pronouns, you switch to using the pronouns they want you to use.
Okay.
Some people don't use pronouns, and in that case, just use their name.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how to use the correct pronouns. Practice using pronouns as soon as you learn them. This will help you remember later when you meet that person or if you're talking about them in general conversation. If you don't know someone's pronouns, try to remember to use gender-neutral language and pronouns instead of he, she, or person instead of man, woman. Oh, they instead of he, she, or person instead of man or woman. If you catch yourself misgendering someone or someone else corrects you, you quickly apologize and move on. Try not to make a big deal about it, because if you continue to apologize to that person, they're going to feel bad for you instead of the other way around, and that's just not really healthy. Correcting yourself will also help you remember the correct pronouns, so it's important to do that in any situation.
So, what is the gender binary and what is gender expression? The gender expression is assuming someone's gender based on the clothes they're wearing, how they style their hair, what makeup they wear, if any, and what body parts they have. So just ask for someone's pronouns when you meet them. For people with like Instagram or other social media, people will often put their pronouns in their bio, and that can help you not misgender them. Just look there, and if they have their pronouns, just use the correct pronouns. Yeah, and gender expression is how someone conveys how they view their gender to others. Yeah.
So non-binary identities. I actually identify as non-binary, and people can use they/them pronouns, but you have to remember that pronouns don't determine gender. Like I use they/she pronouns, and I still identify as non-binary. Any identity out of the binary man or woman is an identity itself.
Finally, one thing we were asked about is different types of attraction, and so there are like 6 like main types of attraction, really. So we have aesthetic attraction, which is appreciating someone's physical features or how they like what clothes they wear, stuff like that. Platonic attraction is the desire to be in a platonic or non-romantic relationship. Like I have platonic attraction to Avery because we're friends.
Yes.
Emotional attraction is the desire to be emotionally present with someone else, and that often goes hand in hand with romantic attraction, which is a desire to be in a romantic relationship with someone. Sensual attraction is the desire to interact with someone in a physical way, and it's not necessarily sexual. And sexual attraction is the desire to be sexually intimate with someone.
Okay, some resources in Vermont. Outright Vermont, the link is there. I don't know if we have it actually a hyperlink that you can click on it, but they have a Friday night group, a youth drop-in space, Camp Outright, Youth Leadership Day, Youth Summit, and Parent Guardian resources. The Pride Center Vermont and the Trevor Project are 2 other resources in the state. And we just love to have you guys in your TA to have some questions. If you have any questions, ask your TA, ask your community. There's a lot of people in SSJ in your TA, so it's really great to talk to them and have a conversation after the slideshow is done.
2 final things that are important to note. We will be having 2 high school callbacks where you can come ask members of the SSJ task force any questions you might have about the LGBTQIA plus community. And on June 1st, during TA callback, we will be raising the Progress Pride flag, which you saw at the beginning of this video. So we hope to see you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.